Hello there, my name's Hydo, and welcome to the Pantheon, the show where we have a look at a brand new commander, and Commander 2021 is upon us. So, let's have a look at one of the brand new Lawhold legendaries. It's Alibou, Ancient Witness, who weighs in at 5 mana, which is rather steep, but Alibou is such a magnificent name that why would you not want to be playing this card? It's just so cool. And he's a golem as well. Now, his abilities, other artifact creatures you control have haste. I don't understand why he doesn't have haste himself. It seems rather illogical. Maybe he's inspiring everyone to attack, who knows. Anyway, whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alibou, Ancient Witness, deals X damage to any target and you scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. So that counts any mana rocks and anything like that, which is really quite good, as well as any attackers. And he's a 4/5, so he's a beefy boy. Pretty solid, to be fair. Now, what are we going to do with this commander? Well, we want to attack, and we're going to use his second ability. It's really the second ability that I like on this card. So without further ado, let's have a look at the top 5. Coming in at number 5, we've got Jorkadin the Prevailer. 5 mana for a 5/4 with first strike. And Metalcraft, we're going to be playing a lot of metally boys. Creatures you control get +3 until as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. So we're going to want to run a lot of tokens, I'm feeling. Really get in there, make use of that second ability, because then we're going to have a ton of tapped artifacts. But Jorkadin allows our little artifact tokens to be absolutely colossal. To go along this, we've got another couple of artifact-centered synergies. Quicksmith Genius is a 3 mana 3/2, I believe. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. It's not card advantage, but it's card filtering, and we can fill up our graveyard for any potential synergies there, bringing artifacts back from the graveyard, that sort of thing. Indomitable Archangel is a 4 mana 4/4 with flying, pretty decent. Artifacts you control have Shroud as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. So it protects our commander and also protects anything that we want to be attacking with. So really quite powerful. The downside is we can't target anything with any of our spells, but we can build around that. It's not that big of an issue, but this is a lovely bit of protection. If you make her into an artifact self, she also protects herself, leaving a Self Shroud. Maybe that's something we might do. Finally, Dispatch is a 1 mana instant, tap target creature. Metalcraft, if you control 3 or more artifacts, exile that creature. So, excellent bit of removal if we've got a good bit of artifacts on the field. Which brings us on to number 4. Gorgon Flail. 2 mana artifact equipment. A creature gets +1 and has Death Touch. Equipped for 2. The main reason we want to be using this is the second ability on our commander. It targets anything, so it can target creatures. And if we just have one artifact creature attacking, we can use our commander to ping that, and because it has Death Touch, kill it instantly. Same would work for lifelink or anything else, but Death Touch is the real main one that we want to be focusing on. Basilisk Collar is a 1 mana artifact equipment. Quick creature has Death Touch and lifelink, and equipped for 2. So, exactly the same. Gain some life, kill whatever creature you want. Godo Bandit Warlord is an excellent way of fishing these sort of things up. 6 mana for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card and put it onto the battlefield. If you do, shuffle your library. Whenever Godo attacks for the first time each turn, untap it and all samurai you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Now, we're not going to run too many samurai. There aren't too many artifact samurais. But if we want to, our commander, it triggers on every time you attack. So, the first combat, we attack with one creature and Godo. Then we get another combat step and we can attack with a different artifact creature, and that'll trigger our commander both times, so we can ping 2 different things. Really good. Stronic Resonator is a 2 mana artifact. Pay 2 and tap it. Copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for that copy. A triggered ability has words when, whenever, or at. So our commander is whenever artifact creature attacks. So this is another way that we can double the amount of pings that are flying around. To go along with this, very similar to the Godo sort of thing, we have Response and Resurgence. Now, I'm going to have to contort myself slightly here. Response deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature for 2 mana. Nice little removal spell early. You know, if anyone's attacking with their commander and they shouldn't be, well, they'll wish they didn't because it's going to be dead. But Resurgence is the main reason we want to play this card. 5 mana for a sorcery. Creatures you control gain First Strike and Vigilance until end of turn. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. So, we're going to trigger our commander again and get in with all our beefy boys. And if we were playing anything with, it's an artifact creature, it's going to be able to attack straight away because of our commander's first ability that gives everything haste. Apart from himself, which is just stupid. Very similar to these, Port Raiser is a 5 mana 4/3. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. So we're going to be attacking again, triggering our commander again. It can't attack a player it has already attacked this turn. But using our commander and, potentially some Death Touch, we can pick off anything that could potentially be blocking Port Raiser and then get in at every single one of our opponents, potentially having 3 combats in a turn. Waves of Regression is a 5 mana sorcery. Untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. We've seen this text before. However, this has Retrace. Retrace, you may play this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. So, it's absolutely wonderful as every land that we have in our hand is now an additional combat phase. It's great. And the art is just phenomenal. Look at those big goblin things. They just look horrible. And the colours are really quite lovely. Savage Beating is a 5 mana instant. Play Savage Beating only during your turn and only during combat. Choose one. Creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. Pretty good if we've got some beefy boys. Or untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there's additional combat phase. So again, and we can entwine it, so if you pay 2 additional, you get both of them. Another combat step, another trigger of our commander. It's going to be fantastic. Which brings us on to number 2. We want some big guys. And Mycosynth Golem, while he's a 4/5, he costs 11 mana. Really, really cool though. He has affinity for artifacts, which means this spell costs 1 less to play for each artifact you control. If you have a lot of artifacts on field, another mana rocks, our commander, so on and so forth, he's going to cost very little. Then, artifact creature spells you have affinity for artifacts. So, every big artifact creature you have in your hand now costs a ton less, so we can get them all out onto the field. To go with this, we've got Mere Battlesphere. Excellent, as it just dumps a ton of tokens onto the field. 7 mana 4/7. When it enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 colors Mere artifact creature tokens. Whenever it attacks, you may tap X untapped Meres you control. If you do, Mere Battlesphere gains plus X plus O until end of turn and deals X damage to target player or planeswalker it's attacking. So it's very similar to our commander, the ability for when it attacks, but it's not quite as good as you can't target it wherever you want. Bosch Iron Golem, as we're going to be flinging a bunch of big artifact creatures onto the field, why don't we fling them at our opponent? Bosch is a 8 mana 6/7 with trample. Pay 4, sacrifice an artifact. Bosch Iron Golem deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's converted mana cost to any target. Really, really cool. He can even sacrifice himself if he hates himself truly that much. And then we could bring him back with a Goblin Welder sort of effect. Phyrexian Triniform is a 9 mana artifact creature golem. When it dies, create 3 3/3 colorless golem creature tokens. Then it has Encore for 12 mana. So exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token that's a copy and it attacks this opponent if able. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of next end step. I fell all over the place during that reading there. But the main thing that's interesting about this is you sacrifice those tokens at the end step. So you're going to get a ton of little golems left over. And it's a 9/9. Pretty damn good. Then we've got a couple of other artifact-centered cards that they aren't expensive but are very, very good in this deck. Aethersworn Canoness is a 2 mana 2/2. Each player who casts a non-artifact spell this turn can't cast additional non-artifact spells. Really cripples our opponents. Lodestone Golem, 4 mana, for a golem who's a 5/3. Non-artifact spells you cost... No. Non-artifact spells cost 1 more to cast. So that's for everyone, not just us. And we're going to be playing a ton of artifacts. And this is going to really hamper our opponents. Then we've got Mirrorworks, a 5-mana artifact. Whenever another non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that artifact. So, if we have, a Phyrexian Triniform, we get another copy of it. Or a Mere Battlesphere. Absolutely phenomenal. We're just going to be having massive dudes flying everywhere. Which brings me on to number 1. Mycosynth Lattice. This card is fantastic, especially because of, in our commander's second ability, it's every tapped artifact. It doesn't care whether it's a creature. So, if all of our artifacts our lands are artifacts, and everything else is, we're going to be doming someone for a ton of damage. Mycosynth Lattice is a 6-mana artifact that says, all permanents are artifacts in addition to their other type. All cards that aren't on the battlefield, spells and permanents are colourless. Nice bit of mana fixing. Love it. Players may spend mana as though it were mana of any colour. So, everything's an artifact. What can we do with that? Well, Hellkite Tyrant, who's a 6-mana 6/5 with flying and trample, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. So, we will gain control of every permanent that our opponent controls, which, will generally take them out of the game. But then it also reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. There you go. You might not even have to swing in. You might just have 20 lands and permanents on the field. Treasure Nabber. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, gain control of that artifact until the end of your next turn. So, because all lands are artifacts, if our opponent plays a spell, taps all of the mana, we're going to get all those lands until their next turn. And potentially, if we're playing something, I don't know, like Crackclan Ironworks, we could sacrifice all of those lands before they go back to our opponent. Finally, Khan the Great Creator, 4 mana. And then the static ability is what we're looking at here, really. Activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. So, tapping for mana is an activated ability. And your opponents can't do it, so their lands will not tap for any mana. And he's got the +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. If your opponent had an artifact land, you can target it, it dies because it's a 0/0. Or if we're playing a massive artifact, I can't really think of any on off the top of my head, but there are tons out there. You can turn it into a massive dude and swing in. He's minus. We don't have an exile board, so it doesn't matter. Bronze Guardian is a 4-mana star 5 with double strike and ward, which is a new keyword mechanic. Whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that unless that player pays 2. Other artifacts you control have ward, so nice bit of protection for all of your artifacts. Bronze Guardian's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. If everything is an artifact, it's going to be colossal, and it has double strike. Very similarly, Akiri Lionslinger is a 2-mana 0/3 with first strike and vigilance. It gets +1 for each artifact you control. Partner doesn't mean anything right here. So again, it's going to be a massive dude. Quite nice. Goblin Welder is the final one I'm going to look at here. If we're going to have a lot of big dudes and they're going to be dying, we want some way of recurring them. So you can tap Goblin Welder, choose target artifact or a player controls, and target artifact card in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal as this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact and returns the artifact card to the battlefield. I've just messed that up completely. But basically, you just switch from the battlefield to the graveyard. That's a much simpler way of explaining it. And with the amount of massive dudes that we have, it's going to really, really help. And they're all going to have haste because of our commander. And that is the top 5 cards for this brand new commander. Or at least the top 5 that I think, anyway. If you've got any other suggestions, please do tell me. I'd love to hear them. And please subscribe. I'm going to be making tons more of these videos. Thank you very much. Bye.